Hey, what's going on? Welcome back to the vlog. It is a Tuesday afternoon. We're up at Orange City. We're going to try to get in the mix here. After coming off a couple good sessions, I booked a real stinker of a loss last Friday. I played bad, I ran even worse, and I played most of it from the one seat, so there's really no content to provide you guys. So, not hiding the losses, just wasn't a very good episode. So, I am looking to turn that around today. In the words of Doug McCusker, sit back, relax, enjoy. Here it comes. After about a 30-minute wait that felt like 2 hours, I finally get a seat at a brand new table, so I've got the optimal view here. My phone's at about 70% and none of the chargers at the table are working, so let's see how this goes. The guy over here in seat 5, he looks familiar. He goes by the nickname F. We met F back in episode 12. He paid me a compliment on a 3-bet I made out of the small blind, and he put me in tough spots that entire night. And I haven't seen him since. Now about a year later, we're back at a table together. His buddy in seat 6, I think his name is Matt, is also a very challenging player. These guys are not afraid to do things like bet with bottom pair and force people into really tough spots with aggression. Should make for an interesting and challenging night. In the first hand of the night, we are under the gun and we look down at pocket 7s. I opened for $12 here, and I chose to take the betting lead as opposed to just limping and getting re-raised by somebody in late position later. We see calls from the hijack, the button, and the big blind, so we're off to a flop 4 ways. The flop is 5-7 queen rainbow, so we flop middle set here. It checks to me, and I check looking for a late position player to fire, but it actually checks all the way through, and that's okay. I can't always play that tag style. Sometimes you've got to check your strong hands. The turn's an 8 of hearts. I don't like that card as much. Once again, the action checks to me, and I fire for $25. We see calls out of the hijack and the button, so we're off to the river 3 ways. The river is a 9 of spades. Just about the grossest run out I could have gotten. I check, pretty bummed. The hijack then bets 55. Then the button calls. This $55 bet from the hijack just seems a little bit suspicious. I feel like it's being done out of aggression. He shouldn't have a whole lot of 6s in his range here, except for maybe a hand like 6-7. At this point, I'm getting 4-1, so I've got a call to see it. So I make the call.
It's the worst run out, but my hand is just so strong. I'm not good enough to get away.
Damn it. I was calling him. I was hoping.
I have a set of 7s.
Oh, really? You were on strips then. Would you have ace high?
We roll it over, and we're actually good here, and we're going to scoop. There's an under the gun straddle, we're in the hijack, and we look down at ace-jack of hearts. We see 2 early position callers before the action gets to me, and I raise to $17. We see calls out of the small blind and under the gun, so we're off to a flop in position 3 ways. The flop is 9-4-4 with 2 diamonds, and the action will check through, so we'll see a turn. The turn's a 3 of spades, and once again it checks to me, so I decide to fire for $40 and try to take it down right now. Or I can get called and make a play on any safe non-diamond river. The small blind is the only caller, so we're off to a river heads up. The river is a 10 of clubs, so the diamond's missed and there's no obvious straight draws out there. He checks it over to me, and I can't win by checking. I wonder if there's a size that I can find that can push like a middling pocket pair off of their hand. My opponent has about $140 in his stack, and I think I go a little bit small here because I choose a bet size of $75. My opponent counts it out, and then he calls. I tell him he's good, and he shows pocket 7s. $75 could not get the job done. I actually really like the play, though. I just may have chosen the wrong player to try it against. We're straddling from the button, and we look down at pocket 9s. We see calls from the small blind and the low jack before it gets to me, and I bump it up to $20. Both players make the call, so we're off to a flop in position 3 ways. The flop is 7-4 jack with 2 hearts, so not a terrible flop here. It checks to me and I continue on for $50. The small blind is the only caller, so we're off to a turn heads up. The turn is a 5 of diamonds, so it's really starting to connect this board more. It checks to me. I've got about $107 in my stack, and I definitely want to charge any and all draws, so I jam.
See, that made it even harder for me. I flopped open-ended, and now I got a pair in open-ended. But is it worth it? That's what I'm trying to figure out. I mean, you clearly have queens or kings. Good bet.
And eventually, he mucks. We're straddling from the button again, and we look down at king-jack of diamonds. We see calls from the small blind, the big blind, and the hijack before it gets to me. When the action's on me, I raise to $25. All three players make the call, so we're off to a flop 4 ways. We flop top pair on a jack-high board with 1 diamond. It checks all the way around to me, and I fire for $60. The small blind is really giving it some thought, and he's looking me up. It's the guy from the last hand. I think he's considering a shove, probably a little bit light, a little bit steamed at that last hand. Eventually, though, he makes the fold, as does everybody else, and I win. There's another button straddle. We're in the low jack when we look down at 4-5 of clubs. There are 2 callers, and when the action's on me, I think 3-betting here is fine, but I elect to just call and see what develops. The hijack calls as well. When the action's on the button, he raises to $25. Can't say I'm surprised by that. However, we all call, so we're off to a flop multi-way. The flop is 6-7-10, all clubs. Yep, flop the flush and an open-ended straight flush draw. It checks over to me, and I continue on for $40. The hijack is the only caller, the guy from the last 2 hands, so we're off to a turn. The turn is a queen of hearts, seems pretty safe. I have a decision now. Do I want to check and let this guy try to get aggressive, or do I just want to put the pressure on him? I think I'm going to try to play a little bit aggressively and put pressure on people, and so I shove for $145 effective. He is not happy.
I'm all in.
All in here.
250-ish.
See, again, this is where you have me. Straight flush draw.
Once again, he reveals his hand, and he has queen 8 with the 8 of clubs. So one of my straight flush outs is gone, and he's redrawing to a better flush. I'm not convinced that I want to call here anymore, but I'm glad I made his decision for his entire stack. He looks like he's going to call, but then he lays it down. We're straddling from the button once again, and we wake up with ace-queen offsuit. The small blind folds, surprisingly, as does the big blind, before under the gun bumps it up to $20. +1 calls and it folds to me, and I can call and play this hand in position, or I can attack this big stack, so I choose the latter and I re-raise to $65. Both players call fairly quickly though, so we're off to a flop 3 ways. The flop is 7-8-3 rainbow, and the action's going to check through, so we'll see a turn for free. The turn is an 8, it pairs the board, and on this card, under the gun fires for $50. The action on +1, and then he makes the call. I don't beat anything here, so despite the incredible price I'm getting, I have to fold, but we will see a river. The river is a queen, and it goes check, all in and fold. +1 shows that he had pocket 7s for a flop set and turned boat. In the very next hand, there's another button straddle. We're in the cutoff this time with king-queen offsuit. I'm going to warn you guys ahead of time, this hand is full of mistakes. We see 3 callers before the action gets to me, and I bump it up to $20. I think that's mistake number 1. I think I needed to go a little bit bigger with that raise there. The button calls, and it folds around to +2, who then jams for $75 total. The action's on me, and I look at the button, and it looks like he only has about $55 behind, so if I call, he's probably getting it in, and it could be a really healthy pot. So I call. Turns out the button actually had $109, and he ships it, so it's going to cost me $35 more. I should have asked how much he had. That was mistake number 2. I obviously can't go anywhere though, so I call. We'll see a run out. So the flop is ace high, which is not good. The turn is a 10 of clubs, and the river a queen of diamonds. The button and I are supposed to show first for the side pot, which you can hear the dealer say.
You two show for the side.
But +2 flipped over ace queen for 2 pair, and I thought, I can't beat that. So I mucked, not actually showing my hand for the $70 side pot. I don't know what happened there. Just an absolute brain fart and a really embarrassing move. Plus it cost me over $100. Just bad play all around, from start to finish. I should have folded to the re-raise and just been out the $25. However, while it would have been very easy to leave this hand out of the vlog, I pride myself on having a little bit of transparency on this channel. I can't only show the good plays. There's a button straddle, we are under the gun, and for the first time we look down at pocket aces. We see calls from the small blind and the big blind, and when the action's on me, I bump it up to $20. It folds to the small blind, who then jams for $33 total. Looking for a call here out of the big blind, but unfortunately he folds. I call, and I'm up against pocket 2s. We see a run out and we hold, so I guess I'll say better a small win than a large loss with aces. There's a button straddle. We're in the big blind this time, and we look down at King Jack offsuit. We see the small blind call. When the action's on me, I bump it up to $15. The small blind is the only taker, so we'll play this hand in position. The flop is 4-9-10 with all hearts, and I'm holding the king of hearts, so not a bad flop here. It checks to me, and I continue on for $15. My opponent pretty quickly calls, so we'll see a turn. The turn's an ace of spades, so it brings in a gut shot straight draw for me. My opponent checks, and I decide with so many cards that can help me and figuring that I probably need to hit one, I just check behind. The river is a 7 of clubs, so I've bricked out pretty bad, but the action will check through. My opponent rolls over Jack 10 with the Jack of hearts, so some people might say that a bet on the turn could have shown some aggression and taken the hand down, but I don't think he was folding to any bets. One orbit later, there's a button straddle. We're in the big blind again, and for the second time, we look down at pocket aces. Picking up the action late, I raised to $15 and got 2 callers, so we're off to a flop 3 ways. The flop is pretty safe. It's jack high here. It checks to me, and I probably need to slow down and check a little bit more here with my strong hands as there's no obvious draws, but I just hate the idea of letting someone catch up with something like 2 pair, so instead I elect to bet $25. They both insta-fold. Again, a small win is better than a loss, and these small pots can add up, but I've got to start mixing in a little bit more checking with my strong hands. This is the biggest hand I played in the evening, and it's a pretty weird one. There's a button straddle, we're in +1, and we look down at ace-jack of spades. The small blind opens up for $15, and then we see a call from under the gun. On me, and I think calling out of position here is a terrible play, and it's only going to invite everybody else into the pot, or create a squeeze spot for someone else, so instead, I choose to raise to $60. F in the cutoff is the only caller, so we're off to a flop. The flop is 7-7-10 with 2 clubs, so I've missed here. I check, and F down bets to $50. Now, F has been ultra aggressive, and I think he actually has me pegged as someone that he can push around with some aggression, and I decide I'm not going to have it. So, I decide to rip it for 186 total.
I'm all in.
And he snaps me the f*** off. I mean, I've never seen a snap call that fast before. The turn is a 4 of spades, the river is a 2 of spades, and F doesn't really want to seem to roll his hand over. He kind of has a grimace and shakes his head, so I announce ace high, and it's good as he rolls over Jack Queen of clubs for a missed flush draw.
Ace high? Get the out of here.
I knew you were full of it too.
Dude.
Nice hand, nice hand.
At the time, I was beating myself up for how I played the hand, but again, getting snapped in a quarter of a second with queen high maybe was actually a good move. A lot of folding happens before there's a button straddle. We're in the big blind, and we look down at ace-king offsuit. We see a call from the small blind before I bump it up to $20. Under the gun then re-raises to $55. It folds back to me, and I ask what he has behind, and it looks like about 90 more behind, so I 5-bet jam for $145 total. However, he's not having any of it, and he folds. About 15 minutes later, the worst thing ever happens. My phone gets down to about 5%, so filmed hands will end here. I was in for 200 up to 507. I played about another 2 hours, and there were really no big hands or big blunders. A lot of small and medium pots either going our way or going against us. So, after 5.5 hours on the felt, we book a modest win. Wrapping that one up, I've got 1% on my phone battery. Pretty good session. Didn't necessarily play great. Made a huge mistake when I mucked during that side pot, but whatever. Shit like that's gonna happen. I'm just happy I came in and booked a win. In for $200, out for $591. If you enjoy, like and subscribe. We'll see you next time. If you enjoyed this video, please make sure to drop a like and subscribe to the channel for more poker content. And you can follow me on Instagram at 7cardflushpoker.